Welcome to the very first episode ever of Erotically Empowered, where we discuss all things pleasure, intimacy, power, and unapologetic confidence. I am your host, Alli, and my God, I am happy to be here. I am happy to have you listening. It is such an honor to share my passion for pleasure and passion and intimacy and this work with you. And it's an honor to have you here listening. So thank you. It's been a little bit of a journey to get here, including some technical difficulties, which I'm sure there will probably be some more along the way because this side of this stuff is not my jam. Pleasure is my jam, but all this technical stuff is not. So just bear with me, but we'll do our best. This first episode, I just wanted to share a bit of my story and how I came to be the woman I am today that is, so deeply connected to my pleasure, my orgasmic energy. I experience deeply profound intimacy and I am unapologetic in who I am. And I wanted to share this with you because this is the same path that other women who are awakening walk. The story will be different, the details will be different, but we all get to the point in our life where we go, yep, I've decided that I'm not okay with settling or living this way, and I'm ready. I am ready to awaken and ignite and come to life and dedicate myself now to growth and expansion, because that is who I came here to be, not this suppressed, numb, version of me who is just going through the motions. So I certainly was not that woman for up until well into my 30s. As of this day recording this in April 2025, I am 40. I awakened around my mid-30s. So before then, my whole entire life, I was not living as this version of me. I was a woman who struggled deeply with pleasure. I didn't feel that much pleasure, full stop, during sex. I would tell you back then that once I started, I enjoyed it. But certainly what I knew pleasure back then and what I experience now is vastly different. I struggled with orgasm. The only way that I could orgasm was with a super high-powered specific toy in a very specific position. And even then, it still sometimes wouldn't work. My libido was pretty much non-existent. I felt like I wanted to be this woman who loved sex and intimacy, but I couldn't coax her out. I couldn't make it happen. So my desire was just not there and dried up. Now, I went on this journey to, quote unquote, learn to come without a toy and to fix my libido. Those were the two symptoms that I set about to fix. And it was when I began my journey that I understood, holy cow, these are just symptoms of a disconnect from me. These are just symptoms of my lifelong struggle with myself and being connected to myself and being present with myself. They were just symptoms. And I went on this beautiful awakening journey of connecting back to my body. I let go of, trying to make anything happen and just decided to connect to my body. And I ended up awakening the most incredible free-flowing pleasure within me, the most profound intimacy, and just this unapologetic goddess within me who is so turned on to life and so ignited. Okay, but the beginning of my journey, I wasn't trying to awaken. I just thought I wanted to come without a toy and increase my libido. And like I said, I didn't realize they were just symptoms. They were symptoms of me never having connected to myself. So in my younger years, I was bulimic, which then progressed in my later years to severe binge eating disorder. I struggled with mental health at a few quite serious points in my life. I struggled with substance abuse at a few points in my life. And I had just pretty much spent my entire existence running from my body. I was very over polarized in my masculine energy. I didn't know anything about masculine and feminine energy. I was just the woman who was, I would joke that no man has control over me. No man is the boss of me. And I wear the pants in the relationship. I would always say those things, and I thought it was funny. Because that's how I saw it to be if I was to ever not be in control, that it would mean someone was the boss of me, and God forbid, no. I didn't understand anything to do with feminine and masculine energy back then, and all of that. I was this woman who had no idea, and I had no idea because, like you, we are not taught how to connect to our bodies growing up. We are not taught this super important stuff of learning to be fully present with us, learning to be okay in who we are, learning to be connected to our body and our feminine energy. Most of us aren't taught that growing up. And so we grow up in a very masculine, energy world where we disconnect from our pleasure. We're in constant doing mode, which doing is the opposite of being, which being is the feminine, doing is the masculine. We are very disconnected from our bodies. We overthink. That was another thing. I was a compulsive overthinker to the point where I was medicated for the depression, but also obsessive compulsive thinking. So that's how bad it was in my mind. My mind was awful. But living in our mind is what takes us away from our body, is what disconnects us from our body. And our body is where our orgasmic energy lives, where our feminine energy exists, where our sensations exist. So when we disconnect from there, how can we possibly expect to feel what it is we want to feel? How can we possibly expect to then go into intimacy with a lover and feel the depth of what our body can feel if we have never learnt to inhabit our body fully, if we have never learned to live with this erotic energy within us? And it dawned on me some years into my journey, holy cow, how in the world could I have expected myself to be this multi-orgasmic, which is what I really wanted back then, because I had this in my head, which now I am free-flowing orgasmic energy, but in my head, for some reason, I wanted to be multi-orgasmic. How could I expect myself to be that woman when I was never connected to my body? Like it hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh my God, how in the world could I feel my body when I wasn't feeling my body? I wasn't inhabiting my body. And let me just tell you, with the multi-orgasmic thing, so I wanted to be multi-orgasmic, right? I had this in my head that I wanted to be able to say I was multi-orgasmic. So that's why now I will often write in my stuff when I share my journey that I am multi-orgasmic with ease and flow, because that was something then that I put on a pedestal, and now it just comes from me being connected to my body. But so what I would do, so I had my toy. So there were two toys. There was one, Mr. Purple Rabbit Man, I would call him, and the other was a vibrating cock ring, which was battery powered. That's how long ago this was, and I'm showing my age now. But that was what I had to use during sex with a partner in order for me to feel anything. And the whole entire sexual experience was based around when that toy would come out. That's it. It was like just going through the motions. Yep. Okay. When's the toy? When can we bring the toy out? And then it would be, okay, everyone, we've got to get into this very specific movement because God forbid anyone moves out of line because Alli's not going to feel her orgasm. So it all revolved around that. And I would be in this very specific motion and I'd be to my partner, don't move. You stay still. Don't you move and ruin it. Don't move and ruin this orgasm. And then if it didn't work, I would get extremely frustrated and the whole sex was ruined. But what I would try and do to be multi-orgasmic, so my Mr. Purple Rabbit Man that I would use by myself, that I could get myself there in like 60 seconds if it was on full power. And, most of the time I could in the very specific motion, I would do that and then stop and then try to do it again. Because that in my head, I thought then I could say, it sounds so funny saying it, but then I could say that I'm multi-orgasmic. If I can make myself come with the toy and then do it again, I'm multi-orgasmic. I can picture like when I was going through this and the exact bed and the bedding, I can picture it all. And I have so much compassion for my younger self. And I giggle about it now because isn't it funny? Isn't life funny? When we look back on our journey and where we've come from and go, wow, if only that younger version of me knew. But I would not change one single thing of my journey. Not one single part of my journey because it's exactly how it was meant to be. But I just look back and giggle sometimes and have so much compassion that, wow, if only she knew that everything she ever wanted and everything she ever wanted to feel and experience with pleasure and intimacy and sex and just being turned freaking on to life, everything was on the other side of her focusing on connecting to her. And this is, of course, why I'm so deeply passionate about speaking so openly about this work, because women deserve to know this. Women deserve to realize that they have so much pleasure potential in them, and it's just a matter of connection and presence in your body. And if it was not for the women before me who I learnt from, I would not be here, where I am today. So I owe it, I know that part of my impact on this earth is speaking about this work. And if I didn't honor that, there would be other women who would be, potentially missing out on their journey, just like I would have missed out if the other women didn't speak up. But of course, everything happened as it's meant to, and it always does. But I remember when I first started coming across women online speaking about this. So the way it eventuated. So I had been doing soul-led work and learning about that from soul-led mentors for a little while, right? And one of the things that I was doing was journaling, which I still do on and off to this day, amongst my meditation and everything. But journaling as in I am, not as in Dear Diary, but the I am statements, really tapping into what it was I wanted and then rewriting my subconscious, all of this, which is, work that I also bring into with my clients and my programs. But so I was doing the journaling work, right? And the phrases, and I talk about this all the time, and I've said this so many times, the exact phrases that I would write in terms of what I wanted to shift with pleasure. One of them was, I experience I am multi-orgasmic with ease and flow. I experience the most mind-blowing, soul-expanding, deeply connected intimacy and sex. My partner and I cannot keep our hands off each other. We have mind-blowing intimacy multiple times per week, all of this. So I started writing this in my journal and really feeling. So that's the key when you're doing journal work, right? Not just writing it, you've got to feel what you're writing. You've got to feel that vibration of what that is now. And I started doing that, and I was doing that for some time. And I was thinking that I was, wanting to transform the relationship with my then partner. Little did I know that it wasn't meant to eventuate with him, and we went separate ways, and I attracted that exactly what I had been calling in with my next partner. And which was funny because with my next partner, I would say to him, because we would start conversations where we were just speaking about, holy cow, like this is mind blowing what we have. And he would use these words. I'd never told him what I used to journal. And he would say things like, oh my God, this is mind blowing. Like I want the world to feel what we feel. And this is just soul expanding. And it dawned on me one day, I was like, oh my God, they were the words that I used to write to manifest, and now I have it. And the words, we can't keep our hands off each other, and all of this, it was like, oh my God. And I used to joke and say to him, I manifested you to life. Anyway, the point of the story is that I started writing this stuff in my journal, right? I had no idea how it was going to happen. I had no idea that I was disconnected from my body at this point. All I knew was that I wanted to be multi-orgasmic. I wanted to experience, this mind-blowing, soul-expanding, deeply connected intimacy and sex. I wanted to feel that desire and not be able to keep my hands off my partner. That was all I knew I wanted. Now, because I was tapping into that and manifesting that, what started happening? Things in my life started shifting. So all of a sudden on Facebook, these sexuality leaders started popping up, which they never had before. And I was like, what? Who are these people? Who speaks so openly about sex online? Who would do that? Even though I wasn't approved, I've never been approved, there was that part of me that was like, oh my God, because this was, several years ago now. And so that part of me at first was like, oh my God, but I followed the threads. So you see how with manifestation, when you start tapping into that vibration, you're then attracting things that vibrate at that same frequency. So because I was starting to tap into the feel of this woman that I wanted to be and what I wanted to experience with pleasure and intimacy, even though I had no friggin' idea how it was going to happen, the things in that vibration started to magnetize towards me. So I started following these women, which then led to me, I went and saw a pleasure coach who I ended up studying as a somatic self-pleasure practitioner later on under, and learning from different women online how to connect to my body. But that all started with me just tapping into this desire of what I wanted to be inside, and tapping into that, led the next steps that on my path, on my journey into existence. But I've forgotten where that story started. This will probably happen quite a bit, by the way. I'll go off on a tangent as I do, and I just have to trust the flow, that's where the flow is. But I always knew deep down there was more to intimacy and pleasure and orgasms and sex and connection than what I was experiencing. I didn't quite know what, and I certainly could never have fathomed what it actually is, what it feels like, I just knew there was more. And I followed those threads and I kept tapping into that. I've never been someone who can just settle. That's not me. Not in any area of life. Not in, I've always had big visions, big visions with everything, with success, impact on this planet, the life I'm meant to lead, all of this. I've always had big visions that make me feel crazy compared to other people at times. But I've just never been okay with settling. And I remember I would, read the quote unquote statistics that say most women, I think it's like, I don't even know, 80% or something, need clitoral stimulation to orgasm. Or, majority of women need intense, whatever. And I remember reading that and thinking, but why? Why can some feel their orgasm freely and their pleasure freely without just having to make sex this whole clitoral and not just clitoral, but intense, powered toy clitoral experience? Why do some of us have to have it like that and the others don't? And why should we settle? Like I couldn't in my head understand, oh, well, because majority of women struggle with that, you should just be okay with it. Like I couldn't understand in my head, and it never sat right with me. I mean, it made me feel better that I wasn't alone, but I had this knowing inside me, well, hang on, if some women, albeit a very slight, small percentage of women, can feel so free in their body and their pleasure and be having this mind-blowing, soul-expanding, deeply connected intimacy and sex and be so connected to their desire, why can't I? Why can't other women? Like, you can't tell me that there was, this lotto when you were born that, okay, if you get the golden ticket, you're going to be one of these women who gets to feel freely. No, like, even before I didn't understand, even before I understood all of this stuff, there was a knowing in me that something's not right here. Something's not right. Something's not right. And I'm not okay with just settling. And I would say that if you're here listening to this, you probably have a bit of that in you too, where you're not okay with just settling with mediocre and disconnected sex that's not fulfilling, sex where you have to fake a headache at the end of every day because, the thought of it is just draining. It drains you. It doesn't give to you. It drains you. And, settling for sex and intimacy that revolves potentially around mechanical powered toys and you don't want it to, you want to feel more. Or settling for just this slightly suppressed, numbed version of yourself. And if that's you, then I just want to say welcome, because you are in the right space. You are in the right space. And if you vibe with me, if not, all good, cool, then I can't understand why you'd still be listening now, really, because my voice would be highly irritating to you. So I suggest you press stop now. But if you vibe with me, I'm really, really excited to share this journey and these upcoming episodes with you to help you expand and awaken and ignite and become that freaking turned on goddess you were meant to be, who is erotically empowered. And if you have any suggestions or questions you'd like me to answer and potentially make into an episode, please feel free to message me on one of my platforms on social media. I'll have them all linked here, but I would love to hear. I want this to be a conversation between us. me just sharing what I know, what I've learned. I'm the same as you. I'm just a little bit ahead on my journey, just like the women before me. But I would love to make this even more personalized by hearing what you're struggling with, what you'd like to know and expand. But it's going to be a wild ride. We're going to be talking about all things to do with the pleasure, intimacy, power, and unapologetic confidence. So thank you for being here on my first episode of me rambling and rambling. And I look forward to many, many more to come.